Welcome to the beautiful home of Fernando and Tammy dos Santos. They built this home in 2015 and incorporated a potable rainwater harvesting system. This process that they've used can help anyone looking to build a home in the Gulf Islands or anyone looking to do a home renovation.
We owned prior to this on the island, and then we wanted a home closer to town. We wanted waterfront, we wanted south facing, and so on. So we looked, and finally we found this lot, and it was very hard to find a lot that met our criteria, and this one did. But our concern was that it has a well on site, but it's a quarter-gallon minute well, and we noticed that the neighbors were trucking in water, which gave us pause for concern. Besides, I always felt that homes should be self-sustaining as much as possible, and water is one of those elements that I thought was important to deal with. So we thought, why not do rainwater collection? It just makes sense. People do it all over the world.
It does make sense. The Provincial Climate Risk Assessment has counted seasonal and long-term water shortages among the greatest risks to BC. Research shows that climate change amplifies not only extreme events like heat waves and wildfires, but also floods. Atmospheric rivers of the magnitude of the November 2021 event can be expected to occur on average once every 10 years in the region, according to analysis by the Pacific Climate Impacts Consortium. During flooding, the volume of rainfall cannot be absorbed by wetlands and lakes. It does not recharge the groundwater stores in the islands to the same extent as when that same volume of rainfall arrives over a period of weeks. The climate projections also call for more extremely hot, dry weather each summer season, which in turn increases the evaporation from the landscape, meaning less rain is available for ecosystems and gardens. All of this points to wise water management and rainwater harvesting as some of the best climate action solutions that islanders can take now for a sustainable future. Fernando and Tammy have done just that. They collect and store annually 56,000 liters or 13,000 gallons.
We came to the conclusion that our water use averages about 1,000 gallons a month. And so we decided that the cistern had to be large enough for our personal use for us to be able to survive an entire year without rainfall. Now that's unlikely to ever happen, but that's our capacity. And so far, in the 6 years we've been here, our cistern's never gone below half. So obviously we built a large enough system. And we have a collection area which encompasses 2 roofs. One roof is a gravity feed that goes directly into the cistern, and the other roof requires a sump pump to push the water through to the system. We collect so much water, and our use is low enough that we've been able to disable the one roof and just exclusively use the gravity feed roof. The other roof is there if when we resell the house, that someone else whose use might be higher will still have the capacity to collect that water.
The total collection surface area is 3,186 square feet or 296 square meters. The plans for Tammy and Fernando's system demonstrate the components of any potable rainwater system. The collection area, downspouts and mesh screens, first flush diverters, cistern, and filtration and treatment.
We collect enough water for all purposes, including gardening. However, we do have a well, and to the extent that the well is working and functioning properly, we use that primarily for irrigation outside, although we mostly chose plants that are local plants are able to survive most situations. Only in extreme dry conditions do we water them, so we don't use much water for irrigation anyway.
The safest type of rainwater harvesting roof is a galvanized steel metal roof. Slate concrete or terracotta may also be feasible. The roof needs to be accessible for cleaning.
So this is the side that we are no longer collecting water from, that we've disabled. And I'll just show you quickly how the system is set up. So basically we have the gutter above us, which has a mesh on it, which is identical to the mesh here. That mesh is able to filter out virtually all of the organic material so effectively that we have not had to clean this mesh ever since we set up the system. And that is amazing because right now, if you look at the mesh on top, it has a layer of pine needles on it, and that happens days after I clean it but it still collects the water very effectively, and we only have to clean the roof about twice a year, once because of pollen, and the other time just to get rid of all the pine needles, because eventually they build up so much, water starts going over the gutters.
Because collection from this side of the roof is not needed, Fernando has used the D-box to divert all rain from this gutter to the regular drain pipe.
So this is our distribution box, or D-box. It's very simple, as you can see. There are only two components to it. The way it's set up right now, the water is going into our perimeter drainage, and if I want to collect water, I simply lift this handle up and push this handle down. Because this system is disabled, we leave it this way on a permanent basis, but we can start collecting water anytime we want. So this is the filter basket. The water comes through here and goes through the basket before it gets pumped into the cistern. So this is the sump pump access, and all we have to do is plug the sump pump in, and the system is now functioning. The other cistern that the other collection area that we have, the one we're actually using, and the reason we prefer this one because it's a very simple one. It's gravity fed. So it only has one less component. It doesn't have a sump pump. So we have mesh on the gutter, and then we have mesh here to pick up anything that the gutter mesh missed. And as you can see, I have not had to clean this in 6 years. It still looks the same, fairly clean. I probably should clean it, but I haven't. The other thing we have is a distribution box, just like we had on the other side. It has two handles and allows me to divert the water during pollen season or any other time I decide not to collect water. So this is our filtration basket, and it needs to be cleaned out once or twice a year. And also the first diverter comes off of this. And that's all there is to this side. No sump pump required because the water comes directly from the roof, directly into the system. And that's why we use this side rather than the other side, because it's simpler without the sump pump.
After pollen season is over and the D-box is switched to collect rain, Fernando sets up a first flush diverter, which automatically fills up with the first rains after a dry spell. This avoids collecting any dirt off of the roof into the cistern.
So this is the end of the first diverter, and the way it works is that it trips out this end, and every once in a while you have to clean it out and take the end off, and you see, oh, there is water in it. There you go. So it hadn't finished completely dripping out. Every time it rains, it'll let 50 to 60 gallons. As you notice, there were 2 or 3 gallons left, so it hadn't finished dripping out yet.
The Dos Santos built their cistern into the foundation of their home. Let's go inside to see where the collected water is stored.
So this is where we have the hatch to the cistern. It's very important to have access to it. And the cistern encompasses the kitchen, my wife's office, and the mudroom we're standing in. It's 18 feet by 25 feet. And it's 6 feet in height, but we only collect water to the 4-foot level, at which point we have an overflow, because for engineering purposes, if you go above 4 feet, there are a lot of requirements that increase the cost and difficulty of building it.
For legal reasons, the hatch needs to be childproof and must have a lock and a danger sign on it.
No child that I know of will be easily able to open this, and that's the idea behind the requirements. So our cistern is full, as you can tell. So the cistern has a few components that are interesting. One is that the main pipe you can see at the top there that has 2 ends, that's the collection system that comes from the roof above us. It's the gravity-fed system. The pipe just to the left allows us to refill the cistern if we need to ever truck in water, which we never have had to, hopefully never will have to. This pipe right here is the sump that comes from the other roof. And over here, you've got this is the pump. We had Greg Bellevance design a bracket for us. So we're able to sit the pump 1/4 inch from the liner at the bottom. If the pump is actually sitting on the liner, it will damage the liner with its vibration, and over time it'll crack it. The other important thing that we've done is we put a liner throughout, which is food grade, and we made sure the liner was large enough to accommodate expansion and contraction. If your liner is too tight in the system, it may be problematic after 5 to 10 years. And the final thing we did, there's an alternative to a liner. There's a 2-part paint that you can buy. Ours is called Brew Coat. I believe there's others available as well, but this is called Brew Coat. And you paint it on. It's kind of like an epoxy, a 2-part epoxy. And it's difficult to use, but works really well. And you can use that in lieu of a liner. But we were a bit over the top. We put that on and then still put a liner. So we're well covered.
When the water is pumped from the cistern and before it reaches the faucet, it goes through a treatment process. Now we are going to go downstairs to the treatment room to see how that happens.
So this is where we have our collections, where we control our collection and where we do the filtration. And our system doesn't vary much from a well water system. The only primary difference that we have is that we have this beautiful tank which changes everything. This is full of marble chips, and what it does, it raises the pH of the water from the low sixes to 7.5. I can actually lower it or raise it above that if I need, but that's the ideal amount from what I've understood. And what it does, it also adds the minerals to the water and turns it into mineral water. And it's just fantastic. It turns our water into the best water you could possibly imagine.
And once it comes out of that tank, how is it different from a well water treatment system?
It's not. From that point onwards, it's identical. The only difference is that this also works as a sediment tank, so my other filters have very little work to do. Instead of lasting a year, which you're recommended to change them every year, we change it every 2 years and it still looks brand new at the end of 2 years. There's several components to the system that you would have in a well system. So this is a sediment filter. So what that does, it gets rid of the largest particles. And then it goes to a carbon filter. The primary use of this is to filter out chlorine. We don't use any chlorine in our system, but we threw it in anyway just in case we ever do decide to put chlorine in the system. Thankfully, we don't have to because we have a UV filter which gets rid of the very same things that you would want to get rid with chlorine. So we have duplication here. I'm a big fan of duplication because I feel safer that way. And then we have this here is interesting. It tells me when I'm supposed to change my filter. It counts it down. And this filter is really interesting because it monitors how much water I use, and it can show you exactly how much water I've used since we've built the system. We're at 65,835 gallons to date, and that's in 6 years. So we're using just over 1,000 gallons a year. 10,000, pardon me, over 10,000 gallons a year.
Right. And it also has a bit of a pressure tank?
Yes, so this would be standard that you would have in any water system. This is a pressure tank. This is a pressure tank for our well system. So you notice that this one's much smaller, and I can get the pressure up to quite a high level. We like a lot of pressure. So our pressure is actually, what is it at right now? I believe it's high 80s, yes.
High 80s. And to get this to the rest of the house, where does it go from here?
So basically, this just ties into our plumbing system. So I have a choice. I can actually get water coming directly from the well into the house by shutting off the cistern, or I can use the cistern water going into the house, or I can get the well water going into the garden. So we've built a, when I say it's a royal eye because it was my plumber who's brilliant. We put in a system that with just a few switches can do many things. We can vary up what we do to satisfy our needs as things change.
And with the changes to the climate reality, all Salish Sea communities are called to adapt to a new rain normal. So we asked Fernando to sum up the reasons for choosing to design and to use this rainwater system for potable use.
We did a lot of research before choosing this, and the only negative I could come up with was the upfront cost. And we managed that quite effectively by doing it during the construction process. So it didn't cost us that much. Retrofitting would be a different story. However, if you're building, it makes complete sense. It gives you complete control of your own system. You're independent, you're able to do it the way you like, and you're able to do it effectively. And it's very cost effective once it's actually built. It costs us virtually nothing to maintain it. And quality of my water is the best possible. And I don't have to worry about anyone else mismanaging my system because I'm managing myself. So I can't think of any reason not to.
On behalf of the Salt Spring Island Watershed Protection Alliance, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Tammy and Fernando dos Santos for sharing with us their rainwater story. We hope that this video has been useful information as you too begin to design your own rainwater harvesting system. Please get in touch with us at ssiwpaswipa.org or give us a call for more information.